Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 108 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. I am Shawn Hannon, joined as always by the charming and handsome Ben Hussong. Mr. Hussong, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
How was your weekend?
I don't remember. No, it was good. Soccer started, so I got to coach some soccer.
New season.
That's right, and still coaching baseball.
Okay, overlap.
So we got a little bit of overlap. Big win by the Bills on Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Weekend. So that always starts the weekend off on the right foot.
It's got weekend for you guys this week. Thursday.
I mean,
and opening day, right?
And opening day.
First time probably ever for the Bills, I'm guessing.
Under this a while. It's been
they've only had this Thursday opening day stick thing for 10 years. So
my neighbor's a big Cowboy fan, and he sent me and a bunch of others on the neighborhood a text like, "Hey guys, thanks for not giving me a hard time about the Cowboys' loss last night." We're like, "Hey, we're Bills fans. we don't have it in us to just go after you at this point. It's not what we do."
Yeah.
How about you? How was your weekend?
Did some bartending in a camp down in the woods.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. That's all my weekend was.
That's a great time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of moving back and forth of product, that is, drinking product. So, some labor-intensive gig, but it was fun.
But you had a good time.
Everybody had a good time. That's what happens when you're a superhero like me, like I'm a bartender. Or a bottle jockey, as somebody on Facebook called me the other day.
Did they really?
Yeah, that was in the same thread where they told me I was, I can't remember exactly what, I could probably get into that at some point, but I can't remember the diatribe of put-downs that one person tried to levy at me all in one post. But that was earlier in the post. Different person who called me a bottle jockey.
I love that you said, like, okay, this new commissioner of health or whatever it is was like one of the Chicken Little sky is falling, let's do everything that's insane, giving the guidance, and you're like, we got to get somebody else. And then every response is like, oh, should it be you who's not a doctor? Yes, that is the only alternative to her, is just me or somebody who's not a doctor.
I stand up, so I'm automatically volunteering for the position.
Right.
Yeah.
By pointing out this person's terrible. It's not. No, I'm not saying it should be me, but maybe somebody who's qualified better than her.
Yeah, just somebody. My whole point with that, and just for some background here, Onondaga County recently appointed a new health commissioner, somebody who is a former CDC employee who started working for the county in 2019, perfect timing for her, and became part of the COVID response team, specifically within modeling. So, we love modelers here at the Sports, Clicks, and Politics, right? They're like our highest esteemed industry of all industries.
I mean, and the accuracy, and if you can't trust a mathematical model.
So my assertion was, hey, why are we hiring somebody who was part of the problem that made the wrong plan, helped institute this plan, and then failed up into a position of more power, right? And I said, we've learned nothing. And then a bunch of people basically, as you pointed out, suggested I take over the role, or somehow I was volunteering for the role. And all I was doing saying, hey, couldn't we think of somebody else? Like, we did this wrong. But I guess the point is they don't think they did anything wrong still.
No,
the county, that is.
I mean, listen, it was these people trying to point out, like, making your point look ridiculous. To say, hey, this woman got everything wrong, never owned it, never apologized, never corrected, is still out here championing all this stuff that we know doesn't work, is not following updated public guidance or public health. And the response is, oh, so you think you would do better? Like, no, I'm not. I know I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified for the job, but I'm still allowed to criticize somebody that we are now paying with our tax dollars to do a job that we know that they're going to be bad at.
Yeah. Listen, I would love to be wrong. I hope she comes out and is like, hey, we screwed up and we're going to do this all over and reshuffle the deck. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I roll. So it's not going to happen. So my whole point is, hey, if the county executive, whose job is to appoint this, fill this position here, wanted to kind of make a public apology without making a public apology, he could have gone out and gone outside of the little box of influencers,
candidates.
Yeah, and figured out that, hey, maybe we need to have different eyes on this situation. But anyway, that wasn't part of the show.
Nothing.
Yes, we've learned nothing. That was literally the last sentence of my post, the whole point. We've learned nothing. specifically that dude. Before we get into other news topics of the day, I should ask you all to please help out the show, like the show, share the show, share this episode with all your friends and family who may be interested in any kind of the wacky topics that we like to. We got a bunch of wacky topics today too, by the way, since we missed a lot of things.
We got a lot of ground.
I threw a bunch of stuff in here that I think is going to be fun. But anyway, so please, and if you're listening to the show on the audio version someplace, be sure to pull over safely and leave us a 5-star rate and review. Much appreciated. Helps us with the algorithm demons who, I don't know, did you see? I pointed this out to you. Did you see that they were now able to live stream on YouTube again?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
I don't know if they remember they came out with this whatever, we had 2 bans or 2 strikes or whatever, and we were just basically we stopped broadcasting there because we were like, okay, there's definitely going to be a 3rd strike. So because they were striking us on stuff that was months old, right? So we're like, okay, they're just catching up.
Right.
And so it was a point of like, okay, why bother keep going through this, and we'll just move over to Rumble, and we've been no problems here with Rumble at all. But I did notice that YouTube has removed our
strikes.
Yeah. Oh, I don't get that far into it, but we can live stream now.
We got one like legitimate one, and then we got like a double secret.
They were all with ivermectin.
Yeah, but they didn't really tell us about the other one. All of a sudden, it just listed as 2, and they made up this 45 days.
Yeah,
it's not even one of your listed.
Yeah, right. None of the actual penalties against us were anything that were part of their. Like they were, as you point out, they were not a week. They were like weird. I don't know. It was crazy.
It was random.
Yeah,
it was like some employee or some algorithmic bot at.
It was like when I was banned on Facebook from joining groups right around the election time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was weird. I was like, I'm not even a Trump dude. They were banning me from joining groups. All groups.
All groups.
I couldn't create a group. My Facebook limitation literally was limited. I could only post and read and comment. I couldn't do anything else.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm a heathen.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Well, you touched on it a little bit here. So let's talk. Should we just assume Bills Chiefs Super Bowl here? It seems like, oh, wait, hold on. You got to. No, yeah, we're going to play this first. So
did you just say Bills Chiefs Super Bowl?
That's going to happen.
They're AFC teams.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. All right. Well, we need to get that matchup. We didn't get that matchup in the playoffs last year, right?
The Bills and the Chiefs?
Yeah, did we?
Of course we did.
Oh, I forgot.
The 13 seconds game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, screw you.
Sorry. Didn't mean to bring that up. So, wait, this is funny. So, I know you haven't seen this yet. I saw this just randomly on Reddit today, so I'm just going to play this up. It's only like a 30-second clip, but since you can't see it, I'm going to describe it. It's an Asian man. It's actually the Asian man doing a spoof. He's talking to himself. You can see he's the same person, and he's wearing 2 different shirts, whatever, but he's talking to himself, but this is funny. So
he's playing 2 characters.
Yes.
Got it.
This is funny. I'm telling you, this is funny.
I am doing a survey. Would you mind answering some questions?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Do you know martial art?
No.
Okay. Are you carrying any weapon? No. Okay, no. Okay, if you were approached on the street by a robber, can you defend yourself?
Definitely not.
Okay, good. Give me your fucking money.
It's funny. He's checking off a list, basically making sure. He's like, oh yeah, wait, this is where we are in society, actually, a little bit. So it's a little unfortunate, but I don't know, some comic relief here from the sports clicks and politics. So, okay, let's talk about the Bills Chiefs AFC Championship redo. I don't know, they both looked awesome, right? I watched a lot of the Bills game ish. I was working, but it was in the background there. I watched the Steelers Sunday game. Did you see that game by chance?
That was amazing.
Crazy. That game wasn't on regular TV though, right?
I don't think so, but they picked it up when it went to overtime. Yeah, so you could actually watch
you could actually watch the craziness within the last whatever minutes and all the agonizing overtime until, agonizing for the Super Bowl losing Cincinnati Bengals, I guess. But crazy game.
We almost had 2 ties yesterday.
I know. There was a chance for 3, actually. Wow. I can't remember the other game, but we were actually I was out with a buddy at local sports bar here, and at one time there was 3 overtime games, and they were all dwindling down, and we only got 1. But yeah, so it's crazy. I don't know. Let's just start with any other than Bills takeaway. I mean, you can give me your Bills takeaways, but do you have any big picture, just week 1 kind of like? I mean, I didn't see any like major like injuries or.
Dak Prescott's out 6 to 8 weeks, and
I said major injuries.
And T.J. Watt is looking like a torn pectoral muscle.
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw that, but they actually, they cited his brother as, I don't know, precedent as somebody who could come back from a pectoral muscle within the same season. He's his brother, J.J. Watt, is the only one who ever did it. So they're like, oh, well, J.J. Watt's brother, so he'll be back in week 10.
No worries. Nothing to be panicked about whatsoever.
That being said, the Steelers are not a good team. So, and I honestly, I don't think the Cowboys are a good team. So when I say major injuries, like neither one of those two teams were going to win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
And so they're still not winning the Super Bowl.
No landscape
Right. That's where kind of I was at.
I agree with that.
But anyway, go ahead with your week 1 takes and anything with the Bills if you want to lead with.
I think the Bills are actually better than I thought they would be right now. I think that we all had our reservation. Everyone knows the team is very talented. There's no getting around that fact. It's an insane amount of talent. There's questions on the offensive line. The offensive line, it's been one game, so I'm going to try not to overreact. But they played better than I thought they would against a very good defense. And Josh Allen gets a lot of credit for that. He got the ball out very fast, almost all night. I think the Rams are going to be fine. I think that they just ran into a team that was better and more prepared than they were.
And early in the season,
right.
there's always
and none of their
stuff.
players had played at all in the preseason, so this was basically their preseason game. So if I'm a Rams fan, I'm not overly worried. You got the screws taken to you pretty good, but it happens. It's football, and the Bills are going to lose games that they should win this season. It's the NFL. It's the margin of error, or I guess the discrepancy in talent between the worst team and the best team is not that significant. Like, there is nothing that's impossible in the NFL.
Yeah, like the Steelers beat the Bengals, right? It's to me, I was equating literally to the Steelers beating the Bills last year. I'm like, they were not as good a team by any means, but they win on any given week. You can win.
I mean, the Titans.
They had
just
5
lost
turnovers
to
yesterday.
The Giants.
Right.
That could come back to
I
bite
did
them.
tell everybody yesterday just to bet the Giants outright. So
really,
yeah,
good for you.
Everybody being the one guy sitting to my right when he was trying to make a bet, and I was like, you should just bet the Giants outright.
Wow.
Yeah, but go ahead. They were getting 6.5, I think.
I mean, good for Brian Dabble. I was not sure how that offense was going to work based on his tenure with the Bills, where he just refused to run the ball whatsoever. But they had a good plan. They did it that well. I think the Cowboys are in a lot of trouble. Even if Dak Prescott were not hurt, their offensive line is not good. And that was the strength of the team when they were making their deep playoff runs. So I'm not overly optimistic for that team. The Texans might be better than I thought they were.
Yeah, but they're not even a playoff team.
No, I agree with that.
I mean, it was a surprising win. I mean, I literally lost my survivor because I had Colts. So I'm like, oh, out.
The Dolphins are about what I expected them to be.
They could be scary.
It can, but I think
only because of Waddle and Hill's speed. Like,
yeah.
Tua doesn't have to be good. So I played a Tua Tyreek Hill stack on my DraftKings team yesterday. Did okay, not whatever. Didn't win me any money or anything, but he was serviceable in a fantasy role. But my point being, in a NFL, like, those receivers can just break a play at any point, right?
Agreed.
So like, he doesn't have to be good. He just has to get the ball out to those guys in space, and Hill could go score from anywhere on the field. So I do think that they could present. I mean, the Patriots look terrible.
Yes.
I guess my point was going to be is that the Dolphins are the only team who could even, present a challenge to the Bills in the AFC East.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think it's
because the Jets are terrible.
I'm not a Tua believer.
I'm not either.
He's okay,
but he doesn't have to be good. That's my whole point. It's like, okay, he doesn't really have to be. If they can, I mean, we'll see. It's a whole new kind of outfit of team there, so they're probably going to have some hiccups, but. They look like they could be like a 9-win team.
I think they probably could win more than that even. My fear my reason for hesitation on Tua is if he has to drop back down 7 with 1.5 minutes to go, there's not enough trick plays to run anymore. When he's got to just drop back straight up and try to pick you apart, man, I wouldn't.
He can't do it.
Bet good money on that. Yeah, I would be he might pull it off once or twice, but it's nothing you would rely on. Where like the class above him, the elite guys right now, the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, full well, even if they are coming and throwing the ball, you are going to have to do everything you can to stop them. And you're not likely to succeed. They're at a different level than what Tua is at. And he had some interesting throws.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, first of all, he's wrong-handed, so he's never going to look good. Like, he always looks like it's a struggle to throw the ball. We're going to talk about Tim Tebow later in the game.
Left-handed.
Okay, If I watch you throw a football, I'll be like, that dude should not be playing quarterback. Regardless. How many good left-handed quarterbacks, really? I mean, Ken Stabler, Steve Young. Like, I mean, there's so few.
I agree.
They just don't look, I don't know, they just look robotic. They look like it's a struggle to throw a football for some reason.
Wasn't Michael Vick left-handed?
Yeah, he was. He could throw the fucking football.
He could run, too.
Yeah, but he could, I mean, he was,
Anyways.
a terrible person. But go ahead.
So yeah, the Jets are as bad as I thought they were. Holy God. And across the NFL, it was some very good games. The Lions are going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. I don't know if they're going to win 8 games, but my God, they will be an interesting team to watch. And if you like football, this was a very fun weekend of football. I mean,
there were some sloppy games. Like I'm going through some of these games that we had all the games on, so I was, dropping in on when I could. But like I don't know. The Colts losing was probably the biggest surprise for me on the slate. Again, I had them in Survivor, so I really thought I just picked the best team. I think the best chance of winning every single week. I don't try to, hold out or whatever. So that was a little bit surprising. But some of these games were, again, sloppy, not like crisp, fun to watch. I mean, they were so entertaining. They were entertaining for sure because, I mean, how many field goals / extra points in a 1-point game basically in the last, minute of the Steelers game? I mean, there was a blocked extra point, 2 missed field goals, 1 hitting the post, and then the game winner at the express. I mean, it was entertaining for sure. But it was a bunch of, they had 5 turnovers. Like it was bad play that led to the entertainment. Point,
you're going to have
But it's week 1.
It's very trendy right now to sit your starters the entire preseason and just not do it. I don't know if based on what we just saw week 1, LA didn't look good, and the Bengals, Joe Burrow came out through 4 picks, put the ball on the ground twice. Like at some point, I don't know if they'll revisit that. I don't know if it's even related. But if this trend continues where you're coming out that flat week 1, you might have to put your guys in for a quarter or 2 in the preseason just to get them back on game speed and work out some kinks.
Yeah, that could be interesting to see how these teams, especially if they commit to it like 3-4 years, so you have a bigger sample size of results to kind of pull from. That would be interesting to see if the teams who play their starters, because listen, in the NFL, 1 win literally, you could.
I was going to say that, but now with the new expanded playoff format and 17 games, it's probably not as important.
Yeah, well, for sure, it's watered down a little bit.
I guess if you look at it, I'm thinking an old-fashioned 16 games and 6 playoff teams aside, every game is that much more important. By adding an extra game and expanding the playoff teams, now it's a little bit more like, all right, if you were going to get in the playoffs, the 1 game wasn't going to be the difference maker.
I guess that's probably a how confident do I feel about my team thing, right? Like the Rams feel like they're a playoff team, so they can sacrifice a game here and there, but
to prevent an injury, it's worth the risk, because even if they come out flat week 1, they were playing what is arguably the best team in football right now. God, that's so weird to say about the Bills, but arguably the best team in football. If you played in the preseason, were you going to win? Like, was that the difference? I don't know. The Bills were pretty on last night or the Thursday night.
So I said, but we'll see. Week 1 is in the books, and Monday night's tonight. Who is it? Forgot.
The Broncos Seahawks?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Broncos Seahawks. The Russell Wilson Bowl.
The Russell Wilson Bowl.
All right. So let's move on to news we missed over the last
2 weeks.
2+ weeks, I guess, technically. But so I want to start with, I'm messing around with my computer graphics here so people can play along at home. From archaeology world, Mr. Hussong.
Sure.
Archaeologists unearth tomb of Genghis Khan. It's like your uncle.
He's everybody's uncle. Times removed, but
he's everybody's uncle.
He's definitely he's that weird uncle.
One in 200 people are related to. That's a lot of pillaging.
I don't think that's the right word for how that happened.
It was on the show.
We'll go for that. That sounds way better.
So forensic experts and archaeologists were called to a site which was revealed to be a Mongolian royal tomb from the 13th century that scientists believe to be Genghis Khan's. So yeah, this is like some mass grave where there's like 68 other skeletons and horses and whatnot, and they have it pegged to about the 20-year period of time. So I don't know if there's ever going to be like DNA or specific evidence from this thing, even though obviously we have all this DNA evidence to not to fully prove that it is, but I don't know. I feel like since everybody's related to this guy, I should bring it to their attention. Maybe they're in the will.
Probably not. Probably not. I would guess that we're not going to get anything from this. But that's awesome. That's
just interesting. All right. Speaking of dead people, John McAfee is still alive, Mr. Hussong. According to his ex-girlfriend, let me get her name here so I can something Herrera. Samantha Herrera? I don't know. So there's a new Netflix documentary that came out August 24th, Running with the Devil. The Wild World of John McAfee, who I have coined the world's most interesting man.
I can't argue with it.
I've met him a couple times. He was charismatic in person. I got to go to his rave at the
Never mind.
No, he had a rave at the 2016 LP convention.
Awesome.
Yeah, I walked in. I was like, what the hell's going on here? I'm like, oh, this is John McAfee's rave.
Didn't
know that. But yeah. But anyway, you couldn't really tell because Comic-Con was going on at the same time, or SuperCon, or one of those things was going on. So you couldn't tell if you were in McAfee's world rooms or if you were in SuperCon. But anyway, interesting dude. But apparently to his girlfriend, 2 weeks after his suicide. Now, even his wife, Janice, has said that she doesn't think that he committed suicide and that the suicide note was a forgery, but she just thinks that he was killed inside the prison cell for whatever reason. But his girlfriend, and I believe her name was Samantha Herrera, supposedly, according to this documentary, received a phone call 2 weeks after this quote-unquote suicide from John McAfee saying that he's hiding out in Texas. So,
he is.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to the most interesting man in the world, I mean, faking your death successfully for any period of time is pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. Or actually dying, but the legend lives on.
Sure. I mean, he could have, self-fulfilled that prophecy, I guess.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Hiding out in Texas. Where
adding to the, what do they call it these days? The CV of John McAfee.
Yes.
The life's work. Now he's alive again. So great.
Beautiful.
All right. One next thing. Do you know who Stephen Hoffenberg is?
Name sounds familiar, but no.
Yeah, so he was the former partner of Jeffrey Epstein at Tower Financial, the greatest Ponzi scheme in the history of Ponzi schemes until one Bernie Madoff took him out. He died. Yeah, Stephen Hoffenberg. Weird note. So I didn't realize this until I was rereading this morning. Maria Farmer, one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, her and her sister both, apparently had befriended Hoffenberg over the years, and they spoke regularly, and she was the one who actually hadn't heard from him and said, hey, can you go check out his apartment? And they went in and found that he had passed away. So, but anyway, the only reason I bring this up is because this Tower Financial Ponzi scheme is one of the ways, I guess, that the supposed ways that Epstein was, or where his $500 million estate came from was, he basically took all this Ponzi money and never served a day in court at all.
He was never even arrested.
Nothing. Zero.
He was the number 2 guy at the company.
Zero. Nope. Hoffenberg basically said that he was swindled by Epstein. So, but anyway, so another person, I don't know, witness or maybe a personal person who could account for Epstein's behavior is now off the planet again. So,
it's amazing to me how much we know and then how much we don't.
Did you know this? Speaking of that, Hoffenberg is this is from the Daily Beast. I'm reading from one of their articles. They do a good job covering Epstein. The Daily Beast stuff is, but they got something on for Epstein. So I'm going to read from there. Hoffenberg is a cartoonish character who burst onto the public scene in 1993 when then Governor Mario Cuomo asked the bill collection kingpin, apparently that's what his was there doing, was called in to rescue the New York Post.
Sure.
Then owned by the bankrupt real estate titan Peter Calico. So apparently this was Governor Cuomo at the Mario Cuomo's like, hey, we're going to bring in this guy. It's like Lee Iacocca of the car industry. He's going to save the New York Post or something. So Hoffenberg had barely taken control of the paper while waiting for his deal with Calico to go through when the SEC, which had been investigating him for years, filed a civil suit against him and his company, Towers Financial. Boom, down goes the thing. So kind of a weird, he was, could have been, if you think of it, it played out without the SEC. Now he's the head of, or running the New York Post and has Epstein on his sidekick. This is probably better it went down this way, I think. You think that? That's just weird, right?
It is.
Could have been Could have been a different New York Post. That's all I'm thinking.
Well, considering that the New York Post headline for the sports section today was "Dabbles of Steel," I'm glad it went the way it went.
I mean, they've been around for 200 years.
I love them.
All right. Well, speaking of rich guys, I don't know this person, Douglas Rushkoff. He is a self-described humanist who writes about, these are his words, he writes about the impact of digital technology on our life. He says he's often mistaken as a futurist, but he wrote an article for The Guardian outlining, and I'll read the headline here, "The super rich preppers planning to save themselves from the apocalypse. Tech billionaires are buying up luxurious bunkers and hiring military security to survive a societal collapse they helped create. But like everything they do, it has unintended consequences." So this, it's way too long of an article for me to kind of get all of it in. But it's basically an outline of how this guy was recruited by a bunch of billionaires saying, hey, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go? How are we going to do it? Like, what's the plan for the after event?
Yeah.
They keep calling it the event in this thing. So whatever the event is, they are planning for an event, and this is on the heels of there was a story maybe 2 weeks ago, or Peter Thiel was denied access to building an underground bunker in New Zealand, some crazy bajillion-dollar thing down there. So we already know about Bezos, how he hollowed out a mountain in New Mexico, I think it is, and basically said he's building a clock or something, the world's biggest clock or whatever, but he's basically a bug-out shelter. It's happened to be like 3 miles from his rocket ship, so like that's convenient for him. He can go into the mountain or go up into the air whenever the event happens. I looked up bunker builders recently.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's I would say a bunch of them, but they're not hard to, I mean, they're easy to find. So
That's wild.
maybe should we looking at sponsorships to build our bunker here for a new studio? That would be fun.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know. I'm going to keep looking at bunker builders. What about you?
I just want to rent the equipment. I'll do my own. I can do it.
Okay. Well, maybe you can do two. Do yours first, learn, and then come over and do mine. I just want to be the first.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I met a guy at a bar. This is a very random story. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, visiting my parents. We went out to dinner. We went out to some random bar where they usually have live music, but they didn't have any that night.
There's a TED Talk on billionaire bunkers.
So no. But I met a gentleman and then ended up like just sitting next to him at the bar, and he was a military contractor who specialized in underground ventilation. So I learned some stuff about how
deep underground military bases?
Yeah, like how wide it has to be. And he's like, it doesn't need to be as wide as you're thinking it does. It's actually pretty narrow that you just got to go and you got to make sure it's clear. You got to have 2 ways to go. I have a lot of random conversations and random bars with people. Even by my standards, that one was weird.
That's awesome.
But it was a great conversation. Wherever that guy is, I hope he's still doing well.
All right. I got 2 more stories in this news we've missed segment here. So one we've covered a bunch of times, but there's 100 articles on this now. Every day there's new information, but I'll read from Android Headlines. Never heard of this outfit before, but they do tech news. This is dated today. Musk lawyers, Elon Musk that is, Musk lawyers say Twitter's severance payment to whistleblower has violated the deal. So you guys may be aware that, he was like a head, former security chief, Peter Zatko, who was a whistleblower, came out and basically said that Twitter's vulnerable in a bunch of ways. And now Elon Musk has seized on, quickly, they just recently paid a severance to this dude, $7.7 million to the former security chief. And now, as a severance of some sort, and Elon Musk is saying, hey, this is a gigantic thing that I should have been aware of, and now that I was not aware of this when I signed this deal, that the deal should go away. So Elon is still trying to get out from under the Twitter deal at $54 a share, understandably. I still lean back to what Zero Hedge said on day one, is like, he has no case. So we'll see if Elon does have a case or not. I'm guessing Zero Hedge was not aware of this weird nuance here now with this, because they couldn't have been. It just happened, this severance payment to the former security chief whistleblower guy. So I don't know. I don't know. We haven't talked about this in a few weeks, so I don't know. Do you have any updates on Musk's takeover of Twitter and whether or not you think it's going to happen and whether or not you want it to happen? Or do you think that, I don't know, just give me your Musk v. Twitter takes.
I mean, I don't have a strong opinion one way or another because I still can't make any sense of Elon Musk, but I hope he gets to take it over, but not at $54 a share because it's pretty obvious that they have been defrauding potential investors for a very long time as far as number of users, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about that months ago of if you've lied about the number of bots versus real accounts and people are paying you, your primary income source is advertising, that'd be like a TV show literally lying and being like, hey, listen, 13 million people tune in to view this, and here's the data that backs it up, and this is the exposure, this is the age demographics. And then you find out afterwards, like, there's like 2 million people watching this. Yeah. Or even if it's off by 10%, the way this math works out, if you're paying X amount per user, it's a lot. It's a big difference for these companies. And it sounds like Twitter was defrauding people.
Yeah. And like I said, I guess really, and I this is where you're supposed to come in as a legal expert, Mr. Hussong, but I just don't know if it matters, right? Because zero hedge basically means like he basically dismissed all of the, like he said, I'll buy this thing sight unseen almost, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's my layman's assertion is that he just said, I'm buying this regardless. And then regardless turned out to be a bunch of stuff that he didn't like and was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't do this. But I keep going back to what that first zero hedge article that I read when it first happened was like, he has no case because he basically waived all that for some reason. So I don't know. I wonder if, we had said when it said this is going to be in the news basically every single week, and it has been, or we could make it into the news every single week. But this whistleblower angle is definitely new and probably was unaccounted for during the zero hedge article. And it's obviously something Musk couldn't probably have known unless he was getting inside information from like Jack Dorsey or something that this guy was out there or whatever. But I don't know, more meat on the bone of this whole Musk v. Twitter stuff. All right, last thing, you brought this, you wanted to talk about COVID variant boosters, Mr. Hussong, right?
Yes.
So the FDA.
I mean, no, I don't want to talk about them, but we have to.
FDA authorizes Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech bivalent COVID-19 vaccines for use as booster dose. So my understanding is this is a booster dose, and only a booster dose cannot be used, as a first dose or whatever. And to even get this specific booster dose, you would need to get the first series of one of those other two non-booster doses, the ones that don't work, and then get this one on top of that before you can even get that. So for folks like us, let's just say,
sure,
the unvaccinated heathens of the world, even if we were like, okay, now you got it. You finally got the Omicron thing down and you're going to do it. We couldn't even get that until we got two ones that didn't work. But anyway, so go ahead on the FDA authorizing a booster shot for the Omicron, the deadly Omicron variant.
So now you're aware.
The B1 or whatever it is.
B4 and B5.
Okay.
Anyways, so you're aware, obviously, that this is a global pandemic. And as such, that's what we've been told. Emergency use authorizations, all right? Because we don't have time to go through the full testing, because also as this virus clearly rapidly evolves, that you only have so much time before there will be a new variant that you need to address. So they had to skip a few steps in the regulatory approval process for these particular vaccines. So you may ask, what? Now, obviously, they couldn't do long-term testing like they did in the initial one where they gave it to a bunch of people and then waited 3 months and then declared victory, even though some people were going, wait, you got to give this more time. This is nuts. But that's aside. Obviously, they didn't have time to do that. Okay. So they couldn't enroll 100,000 people. So maybe they just did a smaller study involving human beings. You'd be wrong.
It wasn't smaller? It was bigger?
It was no human beings.
Oh.
Period. We didn't have time for human testing.
Okay.
So instead.
So we did a large animal study.
Define large. But I'm going to guess either way, whether you're talking size of animal or number of animal participants.
Number of animal participant was my thing. But I think both work in this scenario.
They do. And we did neither. Unless you consider, I don't know what a large animal study would be, but I would think it'd be in the hundreds at least, maybe the thousands.
Sure.
I wouldn't think it'd be 8. 8.
I mean,
we
convincing.
Injected this thing in 8 mice, and they had a reaction in their titers or titers or whatever the hell you say that word, and they saw an increase in the titers, and they went, obviously
Bingo.
Works.
Bingo.
Roll it out. So, for those of you considering getting the Omicron variant-specific booster shot, please understand that there is, in fact, a human experiment, and it's you. You are the test, because they don't have a clue if this is going to work or not.
Yeah, or for how long, right?
Or for how long, or what the consequences will be.
Yeah.
I came across a clip of Anthony Fauci in 1999 warning people of, you really got to be careful about rolling out vaccinations with a shorter window because you might not see the problems for 10 years. It could take that long to see really bad consequences that are caused. Man, he's changed a lot in 20 years.
Yeah.
So going back, if I can vent, for lack of a better word, because we talked about this when this fall
This is what the show
happened.
is.
And so we said, hey, you're rolling out a vaccine that you have no idea if this is even going to work or if it's going to cause long-term problems. And we were met with a resounding like, well, you know, bottle jockey, shut up. You don't understand what you're talking about. And so we said, but what if it does become like specifically targeting only one variation of the virus and it prevents your body from its natural tendency to evolve and adapt to related but not precisely the same strains? And they said, well, that's the beauty of mRNA. All they got to do is input a new code and then they'll have it working. And we said, but how do you know that will work? Has it ever worked before? Like, well, we've never used mRNA before. Like, okay, so you're hoping that we can just evolve this and then do a round, like we do it with a flu shot. That's my favorite. We do it with a flu shot. And that's such resounding success. We needed to keep going with that, even though it has zero impact whatsoever.
Isn't it weird that we had no flu? Probably. Do you think flu shot? We should see what the flu shot vaccinations were for like 2020.
2020
or 2021.
was strong. 2021, I bet you was zero.
But there was no flu, right? So like that's what I'm wondering. Like we stopped. I'm thinking this off the top of my head. So tell me I'm stupid if I'm stupid. But we stopped basically, or dramatically decreased the amount of flu shots given, and the flu went away. Weird.
I still think that it's
probably. It's just listen. I just was just thinking about that, but like, I'm guessing I would like to see what the number of flu shots administered difference was over the last 3 years.
So listen, here's my point. We made all these things, and we discussed this on the show because I went back and started reading articles on Moderna from like 2016, 2014 on these biotech news outlets that were writing about them, and the problem was, hey, they went from trying to cure cancer to doing vaccines because they have a problem with the delivery mechanism, which is the lipid nanoparticles. And when they inject these in the body, we don't really know what mRNA or the spike protein does, but we know the lipid nanoparticles are causing toxicity inside the body, and that's why they could never even advance to human trials throughout all the years. And it was 20 years they were working on mRNA before COVID. So they kept trying it, and they only wanted to go to vaccines because they thought that way it's less toxicity, so there would be fewer adverse effects versus if you're taking this as a regular treatment. But now we're turned around and we're saying, all right, well, now you're going to get your shot, your booster, your second booster, and then they're going to recommend it at least annually, but apparently all you need to do is be 2 to 3 months removed, and you can get more of this. So the amount of faith that you would have to believe they genuinely solved this problem of the lipid nanoparticles is unbelievable. Unbelievable amounts of faith.
And I'm pretty sure they're even being requested, they're not sharing that, like Pfizer's not sharing their data with anybody, even like, other scientists who are looking to try to, expand on that. But
or demonstrate that it really works well.
Yeah.
And also, like the idea that after 20 years of development, we happen to discover the first safe version of mRNA lipid nanoparticles, the delivery mechanism, we just happen to get it right on the one time when there was no possibility of a long-term human trial. Like we just happen to get it right on that exact one where they took away all of the safeguards and said, no, we need this.
Nobel Peace Prize.
This is crazy. So now they're coming out with these, and here's the best part. They did one of these when Omicron first came out, before it evolved into Omicron BA4 or whatever the hell it's called. They tested a Omicron-specific vaccine, and it failed so spectacularly in the small human trial that they did. They never even asked the FDA to approve it for emergency use. Now, the FDA basically is a rubber stamp for Pfizer and Moderna, so whatever they ask, they get. There's a reason we're the only country in the world that authorized vaccines for 6-month-old children. Nowhere else in the world did they allow that to happen. Just USA, baby. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, think about how bad the results actually had to be. in order for them to say, listen, we can't even go to the FDA with a straight face and ask them to emergency use authorize this one. So naturally, when it came out for the next variant, what did they change the structure? Did they change their formulation? Did they change the way it all came together? No, they changed the testing process and didn't bother to test it on human beings because don't ask a question if you don't want the answer. That's their general idea. If you don't want to know the answer, just don't ask the question. That way they can go in and say, well, we see this development of the titers in the mice, and that is reason to believe that this will cause a long-lasting and positive impact on preventing severe illness from BA4 and BA5. Any new side effects? No reason to suspect any new side effects. So you can feel good about it. You tested it on 8 mice. Of course, there's no risk of new side effects. You would have no idea if this was possible or not. When Fauci came out and said, we did the shot, we did the booster, now what we're going to do is another booster. So hopefully what that'll do is that'll get your protection way up to where it was, and this time it'll be durable. We said on the show, that is not based on anything, any evidence, any science, any history. That is based on hope. And it is more than like, if it did happen, it would be a miracle. And then it didn't happen, and people are like, well, how could we have known? Like, people, stop listening to these sociopaths. Stop. They're nuts. They don't care about you. And now they're just changing the rules as they go to be like, hey, we just won't test it on humans. Can't find any negative side effects if you don't put it in people. And then they said, well, we'll just monitor it because I love the response. They vaccinated like 2 billion people, so obviously there's nothing wrong. Like, okay, cool. So where are they tracking if there were adverse effects? Well, if there were, they would track them. And then the CDC acknowledges in a FOIA request, yeah, we're not looking at safety signals whatsoever. We don't have the capacity, so we're just not doing it. So we didn't test for them in the trials. We didn't test for them in the initial safety data, and we're not tracking anything in the real world. And then you're shocked that we don't have a conclusive list of side effects? That must mean it's safe? That's your only conclusion that we can draw? Wow.
Experts.
Thank God they solved this lipid nanoparticle problem right when they did. I mean, just as all the safety regulations that would have pointed this problem out again if it were happening were taken away. Man, God works in mysterious ways.
Yes, he does. All right.
I hate these people so much.
Yeah, well, ditto. I want to bring this little back and forth, I guess I'll call it, to the attention of the peoples here. So I had never heard of this, but apparently there's a what I call a podcast convention. Okay. It's called Podcast Movement. And this is they've been doing it since 2014, so it's been going on for a little while. At the 2022 Podcast Movement in Dallas, the Daily Wire, you may know, is Ben Shapiro's outfit.
Sure.
Very popular podcast. They had a booth at the Podcast Movement. And Ben Shapiro himself showed up on day one of this podcast. I think it was day one, but very early in the convention, I guess. And people lost their minds.
Has that effect on people?
People lost their minds. So much so that the Podcast Movement issued a statement apologizing for his unannounced visit, for his mere presence at this convention, and the harm that his presence caused to the people. Seriously. I'm going to read their series of tweets so that I can not misrepresent what they have here.
Well, while you're reading this, just for those in our audience who may not be familiar with Ben Shapiro is a very right-wing Orthodox Jewish political commentator, Harvard grad, went to Harvard Law School and went to some other Ivy League for his undergrad, graduated when he was very young. Very smart guy. I mean, I agree with him on some things, disagree on others, and he's
smart, like you said. He's
unbelievably,
right.
And he's developed this shtick of facts don't care about your feelings. That's his MO, and that's perfectly fine. But it's funnier because he's this threat to public safety. Ben Shapiro's like 5'9" and maybe weighs 110 pounds. Like, this dude is tiny,
fierce.
Go ahead.
Let me read these. There's three tweets here. This came out immediately after the day after he showed up here. Hi, folks. We owe you an apology. This is coming from the Podcast Movement Zone Twitter account. Hi, folks. We owe you an apology before sessions kick off for the day. Yesterday afternoon, Ben Shapiro briefly visited the PM22 Expo area near the Daily Wire booth. Though he was not registered or expected, we take full responsibility for the harm done by his presence. Those of you who called this unacceptable are right. In 9 wonderful years growing this celebrated this medium, podcast movement has made mistakes. The pain caused by this one will always stick with us. We promise that sponsors will be more carefully considered moving forward. Just to clarify, no TDW representatives, I'm guessing that's a Daily Wire, representatives were scheduled to appear on panels, and Shapiro remained in the comment space and did not have a badge. If you have questions, we're here to talk. Thank you, reading, and we'll hope to continue to join us from here on out. So here's where the story gets good, Mr. Hussong. After this dust up, podcast movement and the Daily Wire, basically podcast movement's assertion was that maybe we should disassociate from the Daily Wire altogether and that we'll no longer do this, right?
Brilliant.
Okay. And shocking, I guess shocking, because this is why I'm bringing it up. Somebody stood up for effing Ben Shapiro. Cumulus Radio, yeah? So they are a national communications outfit, and largely with radio. I think
it's largely syndicated radio shows around the country.
So they came to the defense of So Cumulus, one of the largest radio companies in the country, says it's disassociating from podcast movement, an annual podcast industry conference following an unusual confrontation on Twitter between the conference and the Daily Wire. Cumulus told Axios, is another media outlet, in a statement Tuesday that it's including canceling all of 2023 sponsorship plans. So Cumulus apparently has advertising with the podcast movement and many of their things, and they have pulled it all. And shocking that podcast movement has flipped their position and now apologized to Ben Shapiro. As we stated, we're continuing to evaluate our policies guiding social media and events with inclusivity. This is coming from Podcast Movement's Twitter account. We want to start by sincerely apologizing to Mr. Shapiro for our reaction when he visited the booth. We sold his company. That wasn't right. So it sounds like two different people are writing. It sounds like the person who was writing the original podcast tweets are no longer writing the Podcast Movement tweets, and that somebody else is taking over to be an adult in the room, I guess, or at least somebody reasonable. But I bring this whole story up, only because it never happens. It always happens the other way, right? Where everybody caves and they cancel whatever the right-leaning whatever it is of the day, and this is the exact opposite. Now, Cumulus has a financial interest. I mean, the Ben Shapiro podcast is one of the most probably lucrative podcasts out there, and if Cumulus has something to do with that, they're probably not going to bite the hand that feeds them. So I find this interesting. I just want to kind of get your general take of, is this a turning point where, I don't know, the culture wars are starting to bottom, if you will, to use a financial term, and that we are moving in a bullish direction going forward?
I think we're trending more in that direction than most people realize. I think that you can see it, like it gets propped up by the powers that be as if this is a popular and well thought out decision and this is what the people want. It's not. Like, most people don't want anybody banned because they have a different political philosophy than you do. Like, that's not a very common ideal in this country. It's just not. It's not a popular one. Listen, I've listened to some of Ben Shapiro's stuff. I think his arguments are always very well thought out and very well articulated. I don't always agree with him. I agree with him on some, not on others. It's fine. But I respect his opinion because he is educated. He does get informed on this stuff. And he doesn't call for violence. He's not out there like championing anybody to die. It's just he has his views, and that's fine.
Well, he became the bane of the left existence because he would go onto these campuses and defend free speech, and they try to cancel him at every one of these events, right? So that's kind of, he was doing other things, but I feel like that's where a lot of people know him, and that created a huge target on him. So, whatever the outrage that happened at this convention had to happen through like emails and it wasn't like, I can't imagine there was some like public uproar at this event that Shapiro was there. It was probably, everybody was probably in a little bit of bewilderment that he was there, right? Like, oh my God, there's Ben Shapiro, whatever. Because it's a podcast convention. I'm not, whatever.
I saw a video of him just like taking pictures with people, brief conversations. Like, he stood at the booth And people came up, it's like, hey, Mr. Shapiro, can I get a picture with you? He's like, of course, yeah. Like, oh, we love what you do. He's like, thank you, I really appreciate it. It's not like he was walking around booth to booth, kicking in doors and being like, I'm going to expose you to the anti-trans cause. Like, the dude stood at a booth. Yeah. If you are this offended, oh my God, you need real problems. Because this is not it. So, holy crap, how did we ever get to this point? And
like I said, I feel like it's encouraging the whole, in general, the flip. I mean, podcast movement is probably dead at this point. So, like, if Cumulus is pulling the plug, they probably have another outlet for those revenue streams, and they can figure out another podcast convention. That's easy. I'll do it. Right. Cumulus, let me know.
Give him a call.
I can pull it together.
Yeah, it's just, I laugh when people do this. This is the problem when people spend too much time online. If you spend too much time on the internet between Twitter and Facebook and just the internet in general, you start to think this is a normal position because the internet somehow always manages to bring together the craziest people with the worst ideas, and they always filter to the top. And it's just wild. And a lot of that's the fault of algorithms. A lot of that is the fault of it's playing on our own worst devices. Like, we always seek out things of confirmation bias and that make us feel better, like we're the good person. And so as that happens, it inevitably gets more extreme. And all the algorithm is really doing is giving us what we want. So it's not wrong. It is what we want and what we seek and what most people do. So then all of a sudden you never get exposure to the other side. Your ideas get more extreme. And like I said, if you have nothing but time, if you can tweet 100 tweets a day, I'm just going to throw it out there. You're probably not the most productive members of society. All right. So you're not getting the best and the brightest out there for the most part. There are some exceptions, but generally speaking, it's not the best people ever. So you're getting that with those ridiculous ideas, no allowance for any type of pushback or nuanced discussion of, hey, maybe this isn't 100% it. Instead, it's tagline, 60-second video clips, and completely skewed viewpoints. So if that's your world and that's what you live in, my God, shut it off. Go outside. Go talk to people. I promise you, like the average Democrat, the average Republican, you're not going to disagree on that much stuff. It's just not there. So I think to your question, yeah, it's starting to shift because people are starting to become aware of, hey, a lot of this is being skewed by the media, the social media companies, the technology companies. All of these things in concert are leading us this way to a path we don't want to go. I don't want to see anybody cancel. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a socialist, a libertarian. God bless you. I'm a huge proponent of free speech. I think if you're a fascist Nazi, you should be allowed to talk. I want to know not to support your business. That's it. I don't agree with you. So that's okay. That doesn't mean that I have to like silence you. No. Yeah. Talk all you want. And my favorite is the argument of like, well, that's fine for you, but what about these impressionable people that will be swayed? Like, you mean idiots? That's what your fear is, that people are too stupid to understand the idea of why Hitler's ideals might have been a little troubling? They're so, not you, of course. You and your kind are so super smart that you could never be sucked into a bad ideal to champion a cause. But the people on the other side of the aisle, rubes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we bottomed when Spotify held kind of strong, I guess. I'll say kind of strong because I think there's some missing episodes there of the Joe Rogan stuff. Most of them, I think, for some reason, are based around Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
News, yeah, not great. But I do feel like Spotify's public backing of Joe Rogan and this kind of make me feel like the bottom's in, if you will, for this weird culture.
Well, you're watching what happens with Disney right now. Of Disney decided to go the other way and to go full on like whatever woke cause they can come up with, and as a result, like it's not just. I think for the most part, if you have kids and Disney's your thing, like cool, but it's not where I go to get your politics of how you think my children should be raised rammed down my throat.
Exactly.
So I listen, I had no objection to the Buzz Lightyear movie where they had two same-sex characters kiss. All right, so there was lesbian stormtroopers apparently. I haven't actually seen the movie, but I wasn't boycotting it either. It was just my kids are a little older. I think they've seen it actually, and I have no problem. It's that, listen, you didn't do it because it was a natural storyline and you were trying to tell the best story possible for the kids. You did it because you just wanted to score these stupid points. And you're letting me know where your priorities are as a company. And that's fine. I'm not boycotting Disney. I'm not going back to Disney World ever again. That's nothing to do with that. It's just because I've been 3 times and I'm tired of giving them my money when it's insanely expensive. And my kids are older now. Yeah. So that's that aside. The podcast group.
Podcast movement.
Thank you. yeah, I wouldn't support him. No, I'm sorry, but if you fold that quickly, no, I will not support your company.
You know, listen, maybe they shuffled their officials at the top and they have new messaging with that, and so you know you can always hope for them to change for the good. I mean, whatever, but the way Cumulus worded it was, we're going to give them time to think about their decision, and you know, apparently it's going to be through 2023, right? So like we'll readdress you in 2024 and see if it's still something we want to kind of go back. So prove yourself otherwise,
right?
Which we can give them a chance to, right?
I mean, God bless
we're not part of the podcast movement, so like it's not like we have some vested interest one way or the other, but hopefully they change and it turns out to be a different thing going forward. I guess.
Hope so, because I can't stand censorship, and that's the entire beauty of this podcast environment that we have now is you can literally go and say whatever you want. And people can find you based on what you're talking about, and you can have shared ideas. You find people randomly that you like. Like Ben Shapiro never rises to any level of fame in any other time. That's probably not true. He's a very good writer, so he probably could have filled that. I'm blanking on the guy's name.
He would have. I don't know who
guy in the 70s who wrote for National Review.
Buckley?
William F. Buckley, yes, thank you. He could have filled that role in that time too, because just very eloquent speaker, very well thought out writer.
Yeah, I think like he would. I think he would be successul in any era. I mean, he's smart enough. But anyway, so all right, so let's talk about one of our favorite subjects here, Hunter Biden. But really, we're going to talk about Tim Tebow. You know who Tim Tebow is? Not that Tim Tebow. Timothy Tebow, a senior official with the Washington FBI field office.
Okay.
Timothy Tebow, spelled Thibault.
Thibault.
Yeah, but it's pronounced Tebow.
I disagree.
So we're going to call him Tim Tebow. So anyway, this agent, Tim Tebow, resigned. And the reason this is important is Tim Tebow is the field agent who was tasked with the Hunter Biden story. Specifically, I want to bring attention to his 5-hour interview with Tony Bobulinski the day after Bobulinski's press conference in which he said the big guy is Joe Biden. So Tim Tebow was responsible for the interview, which apparently was 5 hours, of Tony Bobulinski, and then did nothing with it. So basically kept all of that information out of public light, out of reports, went so far as to designate the story in a way internally that it could not be reopened once closed. So the case, that is, of this Hunter Biden's laptop. So this guy, now he says he resigned freely. I have heard other reports where he was let out of the office, so we'll see if that is true or not true either way. Regardless of how he actually left the building, he is no longer employed by the FBI, in large part because of his interference with the Hunter Biden laptop story. So I figured I would bring this to everybody's attention because I feel like this is maybe a cracking of the FBI. You know, this is seemingly like a rogue institution at this point, and this guy may have been part, or at least a major part, of this basically cover-up of the Hunter Biden laptop story. So I don't know. We talked about Tony Bobulinski when it happened here. We've talked about the FBI basically, you know, while they were suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop, many FBI folks were out there basically saying, oh, this is all the earmarks of Russian disinformation simultaneously, when they had the laptop and the interview with Tony Bobulinski and knew that it was not Russian disinformation of any sort. So
sure.
Another chapter in the Hunter Biden laptop story here. I don't know. Do you have any takes on Tim Tebow basically being the fall guy maybe for some FBI shenanigans?
I keep waiting for some investigative journalists to start looking into these people.
I mean, they are, but nobody reads it. Like the people, us, we read the ones who are doing it, but as you point out, the people who have lived in a information silo are not. They're just unaware that this stuff even exists, and that was the point, I believe. You know, obviously, by keeping this information suppressed, there was no mainstream reporting on it because there was no information to report. And the people who, like Miranda Devine, who's kind of been all over this Hunter Biden laptop story for the New York Post, you know, she's looking for that information. So you have to be out there looking for that information. you don't know what you don't know. And I feel like, and a lot of these media outlets don't want to know, so they don't make any kind of effort to don't go down that rabbit hole. But I don't know. I feel like this is a good sign for maybe some vindication in the Hunter laptop story, I guess. But maybe some people are actually losing their jobs, right? I mean, it's...
Do you remember the hacker group Anonymous?
Yeah,
What
they're still
happened to
around.
them?
They're still around.
What do they do?
They got a little woke, I feel like.
Listen,
So-
this is what you exist for. Go find it. This is high levels.
I mean, listen, if they had that access, we would already have the client list, right? So
Unless they got paid off.
I guess what I'm saying is I have lost a little bit of faith that Anonymous is still acting as a
True independent check
yes.
on power. Got it.
I mean, they might be. And
Live
I
long
don't
enough to see yourself
they
become a
can
villain.
hack my 12-year-old laptop any second they want here
True.
and shut us down. But I don't know. To your point, it would be nice to have somebody in the background exposing these things. Like just bringing WikiLeaks back would be
Right.
a service to us all. So more Hunter Biden stuff. I'm sure that story won't end. So
There's no way this guy's not guilty. There's no plausible explanation for how this man's existence has gone for the last 30 years that doesn't involve criminal behavior, high levels of corruption, and his father being involved. It is not possible. I am all for innocent until proven guilty, and I think you got to be proven guilty in a court of law. No arguments, no second guessing. There is the idea that you could believe on faith that this is all coincidental and that this all just is the way it all went down with no corruption and no malintent. You have to be a crazy person. You have to give such a benefit of the doubt that I can't fathom it. I can't. I can't figure out how you even get there.
all right, and let's pile on the FBI here. So apparently over the last week or so, or maybe a handful, I'm sure they probably happened almost simultaneously when they did happen, but over the last few days, I heard Steve Bannon say 35, but I've heard other people report over a dozen Trump associates were subpoenaed and basically post-election fundraising and fake elector plot in Georgia. So including former White House aide Stephen Miller, who I feel like was one of Trump's bigwig advisors there. So more political games being played by the FBI here. I mean, the loss of Tim Tebow has not stopped the offense from moving forward against Trump, I guess. You like that?
I hate you. You're the worst.
I don't know. I don't really have anything enlightening to say about this other than just drawing it to the attention that the FBI is still clearly going after Trump.
They better have something.
Right.
Holy crap, because after the Russia, and here's where I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. They literally went after the Russia collusion thing so hard for 3 years, knowing full well there was nothing there. Knowing full well there was absolutely no case that could be made. Knowing that there was no shot. And they went and pumped this thing for years. And they used backdoor informants into the media to be like, hey, we got him.
Remember when they kidnapped a governor?
Oh, my God. And then that guy got promoted. And
That's the same guy, Tim Tebow.
Stop.
I'm almost positive.
I hate everything.
Yeah.
This is...
He was involved in all of it. That's what I'm saying. Is he clearly? I mean, listen. He had a bunch of social media tweets or posts that I think were taken down now, where he was totally like just trashing Trump, whatever. And so they're basically trying to get him in violation of the Hatch Act because he was a federal employee and whatnot. So this guy clearly didn't like Trump, but he was in position to do everything he could to leverage all of the weight that the FBI could against him.
This is where we said it years ago when we first started the show. Trump makes everyone dumber.
Yeah.
His supporters and his detractors. Trump, I don't know how he does it, but he just brings...
Maybe it's the tone of frequency of his voice.
I've never seen anything quite like this. Like, being against Trump is a sufficient reason for anything.
Anything.
Like, what? Oh, my God. Like, we went from, guys, stop with your crazy conspiracy theories. There is no deep state to, hey, guys, thank God the deep state's here and is stopping Trump. Like, wait.
They're fortifying the election.
Oh, my God. The multi-million-dollar effort to secure the election. Or the person who wrote the anonymous op-ed in, like, the New York Times. It was like, I am part of the resistance inside the White House. Like, guys, that's not how our government works. You're not supposed to do that. But here we are.
Here we are. All right.
God, I wish
Let's
Trump
talk
would go away.
about another one of our favorites here, Project Veritas, Whoa, that's not what I want up there, guys. Hi. Sorry for the viewers at home are seeing double videos of the Bitcoin ticker there. So, Project Veritas has released I'll call it a series of undercover interviews with a bunch of teachers and principals of the like in schools. This is in New York City and Connecticut. Most of these are. Actually, let me play. I have this clip here, but so they've been releasing these segments that are something called their hashtag secret curriculum. So you can kind of go out there and I'm sure on Twitter you can find that. But let me play a little bit of this.
I'm an assistant principal.
What would you do, though, as a principal if you knew there was a conservative applying? Would you hire such a person?
If they say that, like, diversity is about, like, everyone is equal, it's like that person.
Yeah.
Like, for kindergarten, for Pride Month, it's like you should be whoever you feel like you should be. The conversation's deepen.
Meet Todd Soper, assistant principal of neighborhood charter schools in Harlem. He's in charge of more than 670 students. Like Jeremy Boland, the vice principal in Connecticut, he also refuses to hire conservatives and has a line of questioning to reveal their political views.
What would you do, though, as a principal if you knew there was a conservative applying? Would you hire such a person? Yeah.
We have very specific questions, and like ultimately, like our diversity, equity, and inclusion question, like our DEI question, is like it's very telling if somebody has like done a lot of work within themselves, within the profession.
But even conservative, like even
and it comes out like if people don't answer that question right, they're just an automatic not.
Like hire. What? Give me an example of not answering that question. Like one of the more
if they say that like diversity is about, if they say something that lends itself to be colorblind, which could happen, like, oh, it's like, like everyone is equal, like those things that are well-intentioned statements, but they're missing the depth of understanding of how like the intersections of our identity live out in the world. It's like that person.
This begs the
All right, so that was 2 minutes of a look like about 5-minute segment there of Project Veritas, and this is just one of, I believe they have 4 right now that are out. Mr. Hussong, so we've seen some, like I think Connecticut. Well, I don't know how genuine their investigation is going to be, but we've seen some civil rights. Or floating the idea of civil rights investigation into these people who have been exposed through Project Veritas. But I feel like we've, or at least have known that this was in existence, but to see it out in real world and admitted to by these people without batting an eye is more than concerning.
No. I want them to talk. I want this. This shouldn't be a secret. If you're going to run a charter school where you want to encourage kindergartners to experiment with gender identity and expose and find themselves at that age, and if they want to be a boy, they can be a boy, and if they want to be a girl, they can be a girl. I want to know that before I send my kid there. I want to know where you stand, and that doesn't mean I don't think you have the right to exist. You do. I might not send my kids there, but other people would probably love it. And here's my thing. This is why I hate censorship so much. Good. Let me know who you are. Please. If this is how you feel, if you feel like somebody who has a differing political view is so beneath your moral standing that they are not even worthy of consideration for a job for which they would otherwise be fully qualified, I want you to say that out loud and have zero worry about saying that out loud. And listen, let's get into the civil rights aspect of the discrimination. Get rid of all those laws too. Good. If you are a kind of human being that will run a business where you refuse to hire a black person, I want to know if the only reason you're hiring minorities or females or people with disabilities is because a law tells you to, you're not a good person. And I would much rather have you unafraid of voicing that opinion so I can choose to not work for you, to not support your business, to not go there, to not attend your school. I want to know. I don't want you in hiding. I don't want you in secret. Sunlight is always the best disinfectant. Come on out and talk. I'm begging you to, because now I know this is not the right school for my children. Thank you. Yeah. Good luck. Genuinely, good luck. I hope that you do whatever you're looking for. I hope you get. I'm just not here for it.
I'll tell everybody, I don't have it loaded up here, but I'll tell everybody to go listen to or find the Project Veritas video. I think it's on their YouTube page where O'Keefe is reading a letter he received from the Connecticut Attorney General, I believe it was, or somebody in that office, and their lawyers reply to it. It's pretty entertaining.
Okay.
I would encourage people to go watch that. It's a few minutes, but it gives you kind of the gist of some people still are, the fight, this attempted fight by the Connecticut Attorney General is going to end poorly, just like all the retractos that end poorly for Project Veritas.
It shouldn't require Project Veritas doing a deep undercover dive for these people to just say out loud, listen, we're not going to hire conservatives here because that's not the mission for this school. Our school we are big on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and these are the initiatives we're going, and we are a charter school, not a public school. Therefore, we want to do it and shape kids this way. And for the people out there that want this type of an education, this is what our school is for. The parents who send their children to our school do not want a conservative teacher. Awesome. Let's just say the quiet part out loud. Let's just get it out of the way and say, okay, thank you. And good luck. It's not where I'm sending my child to school.
Yeah. So we'll stay tuned to Project Veritas. They always do good work there, exposing the craziness of the world that we live in here. So, all right, before we get into this last story, I want to remind everybody again to please leave a rumble or like the video, share the video, leave us a rate and review if you're listening to us wherever you're listening to us on your favorite podcast service. It all helps us get the show back out into the world. I do before we haven't made, this is not an official announcement by any means, but we haven't really talked about this in general, but we invited Assemblyman John Sulka to be part of the show, Mr. Hussong. I think that could, he's seemed very receptive to the idea. His service for New York State will end at the end of the year. I'm not sure how many, maybe we'll get him on a couple times this year for sure. Try to outline what we may do him, but we're going to try to give him an outlet for his voice while he's no longer serving New York State. I think that'll be fun for everybody here. I know it'll be fun for me, and I think fun for you, but I think it'll be fun for our and informative for our audience. So hopefully that all works out. We can get Mr. Sulka on here a few times before the end of the year while he's still Assemblyman, and then move forward next year with him as an eye on New York kind of thing. Yeah, something like that.
Our man in Albany.
All right, so let's do this last story. I don't even know what to make of it yet. But the Attorney General of Missouri and the Attorney General of Louisiana and I forgot who this is, the New Civil Liberties Alliance, along with 4 private plaintiffs, including Jay Bhattacharya, Martin Kulldorff, are suing Joe Biden, the President of the United States, for alleged free speech violations. They have tried to dismiss this case out of hand there, but the judge ruled that communications from Fauci and the press secretary, I forgot her name, Karine Jean-Pierre, as Tucker likes to call her. What?
Or Jen Psaki.
Either one, yeah. That those communications should be handed over to the plaintiffs in this case. So they are going to get some communications to the social media companies that were directed from the press secretary, i.e. the Biden White House, and the COVID response through Dr. Fauci. So it's hard for me to get too encouraged over this, but the fact that it's even gotten this far is like crazy to me, and it's literally gotten nowhere, but it's the fact that it's that far, which is minimal, is still pretty astonishing to me. So I don't know. Do you have faith that this can do anything, first of all? This is basically going to go, they're citing COVID stuff. They're citing election stuff as instances where the administration basically suppressed folks' First Amendment right. And we've talked about Jay Bhattacharya and Martin Kulldorff on this show many times because they were two of the signers of the Great Barrington Declaration. Again, I want to be encouraged by this. I am, if any of this stuff from Discovery or whatever comes out from these communications from there, that's any kind of meat on the bone, maybe this thing gets some traction and it actually turns into a thing. But I don't know. Can you really sue the administration? And what's the result if you can? What's the successful result in your mind if they, other than some kind of civil penalty? Like what is there a path to a better First Amendment through this lawsuit?
I suppose there always is, but I don't know how it would work. I don't know the mechanism. It's interesting. Obviously, if the president of the United States is working surreptitiously through health agencies and executive branch agencies with technology companies and media companies to silence your voice, I think most of us would agree that would be a violation of the First Amendment. It's pretty cut and dry. That whole, we have the right to free speech.
So they basically asserted that under the First Amendment, the federal government should have no role in policing private speech or picking winners and losers in the marketplace of ideas. But that is what the federal officials are doing on a massive scale. So that's their assertion. I wholeheartedly agree that happened, and I just don't know what kind of legal precedent there is out there to actually. I mean, they can't undo any of it. So, like, it's all of the damage has already been done. You can't undo the lack of information that was allowed into the public discourse for 2.5 years, basically. So, again, it doesn't matter if they're successful or not in hindsight. But I would like to know that going forward, that the these big tech companies aren't under the thumb of the FBI or some other White House official, basically saying, "Hey, this is what you can and cannot talk about." I hope I don't know. I just hope, like I said, I don't have faith that this is the path forward, but hopefully enough information comes out through this lawsuit that maybe there's a continued awakening amongst the people that maybe to your assertion that people don't really want ideas suppressed in general. And maybe this kind of, like I said, I don't have any, I don't think this is going to deter the government from lying to us or trying to suppress First Amendment rights in some other way going forward. But I just hope that this comes out and more people are waking up to the idea that the government basically is controlling a lot of the narrative.
I think we could get some damning emails, but here's the reality. It's going to take a long time because the Fauci et al. Are going to classify a bunch of these emails, and they're going to have to block this sensitive information. I mean,
Sharpie their stock. We should buy some Sharpie stock.
I was dying laughing because there was a FOIA request done from Fauci about the internal communications about the origins of the virus, and a judge ruled like, no, you have to turn them over. And they turned over stuff that literally just said, "Dear Francis, Black, regards, Anthony Fauci." Like, guys, what are we doing? So they're going to keep delaying. And here's the reality. If they had nothing to hide, they would come forward with it. I do appreciate the distinction of when they had the Trump's phone call with Zelensky and they were like, he tried to pressure him into investigating the Bidens in order to get the arms. And then Trump went, well, just release the script of the call. Go ahead. It's there. You can listen to it for yourself and decide. And now some people still think that was what it was, but other people went, all right, I see where you're going with that, but it's definitely not the context of the phone call. Like, you skipped over 4 minutes of conversation in between these two lines, so you lied. And this is what I mean about Trump made everybody dumber. But at least to his credit, he was like, go ahead and release it. I got nothing to hide. I don't think what I said was wrong. And then he, became him. He was like, it was a perfect phone call. And all the other stupidity that he could come through. In this case, I hope they have to release everything. Like, guys, it's our tax dollars that pay these people. We paid for the privilege of these idiots telling us what to do and treating us as morons for the last 2 years and closing down businesses and shutting down the world. This inflation we're experiencing right now is a direct result, at least partially, of screwing up supply chains for months on end. Like, this isn't a coincidence. They have destroyed so many wonderful things about our country and about the world. And now they have the audacity when they're getting called, when some of us are going, wait. you were so wrong, and there's no way this was legit. We are entitled as the public to your inner workings as a government officer because it's not a national security issue. Sorry, it's not. There's no trade secrets that we're worried about here. We want to know who's paying you and how much they paid you and when they paid you. And your response was like, whoa, you are not entitled to that. These are the inner workings of our department. Based on what? We have a Sharpie and screw you. That was basically the argument. So they're eventually going to have to be ordered to turn it over, but they're going to delay it as long as possible.
21 days, Mr. Hussong. They have 21 days from Tuesday, September 6th. So by the end of the month,
calendar.
We'll be sure to talk about it.
Yeah, when they file for an extension and these are the same people that legitimately tried to have 75 years to release all the Pfizer documents. They asked for 75 years, and then when that got denied, they were like, "All right, I guess we can just turn them over."
Yeah,
like these people are not serious.
So that's so. Do you think that they had 75 years ahead of time? Do you think they started with like 100 years? Like, oh no, that'll get us mocked. Like we can't do 100 years. We can do 75 years. That'll make us look legit. Like, do you think they had a discussion?
I hope so. It's a good point though. You always wonder, like, what was the conversation? What were the ideas you said no to? That this is what you settled on.
Yeah, it's like, well, my grandkids still be alive to suffer the consequences.
This is like the that moment where Schumer and Pelosi and all them put on the kente cloths and they took a knee in the middle of the Capitol building. And I'm watching it, my eyes are like wide. I'm like, oh my God, what were the ideas you said no to? Can I get a list? Can I get a list of what else was suggested that you settled on this as the acceptable? Oh my God, please can I see the list? Please tell me somebody suggested blackface. That's all I want to know. Like in some type of a tribute. Because I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah,
You're telling me Nancy Pelosi didn't get drunk one night and be like, all right, guys, listen, I know, but maybe if we do it.
I don't know. At some point, we're going to have to rename this podcast the Clown World Podcast. Because nothing makes sense.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Hussong, we covered a lot there today. We appreciate everybody sticking with us for 2 weeks not having a show. We had a little holiday and a little vacation going on there, so back at it next week, I think, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
No, me too. Every
I'm not
week.
going back to water
All
safari.
right.
It was a great park,
No,
by the way. If
no,
you haven't
you're
gone to a water safari in Old Forge, go to water safari. If you have kids especially, it's great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Old Forge is kind of a cool little area.
It is a cool town.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, we will leave you all again for a week. We'll be back here for episode 109 next week. I'm sure with more crazy and wild news, quote unquote news. All right. So we thank you all again. Please, again, do your share this video, leave us a rumble, do all those things, leave us a rate and review, and we'll see you all again next Monday.